Welcome back from that break. And here we are. Murktar is here to tell us, if I have 1 million naira today, where will I put it? Now that all Nigerian stock market index is showing a rally of positive sentiment. Mr. Murktar, a good day to have you on the show. Okay. Now, talking about Nigerian stock market, the Nigerian All Share Index ASI advanced by 485.2 points to close trading section at a positive territory over 146,000. This shows a 42.05% despite slowdown in the trading volume. Market activity also eased with total of 346.9 million shares traded. But here we are. There's a big question in town. If you have 1 million naira now, where will you take that 1 million naira to? Mr. Murktar, a good day to have you on the show, sir.
Thank you, Lekon. If I have 1 million naira, where would I take it to?
Exactly. I'm asking you. It's a poser question that was thrown up today on one of the group that belong, our economist report group. Let's have your take.
Well, if I have 1 million naira today, if I have 1 million naira today, I'll take it to the equity market.
Fantastic.
And I'll buy only one stock. I'll buy Access Bank stock because I feel that it's very undervalued at the moment. So, and again, when you look at, you made mention of the All Share Index. It has done about 42.06%, which is above rebased inflation numbers and current inflationary numbers. So definitely what it means is that the stock market will give you more return with 1 million than the fixed income space, because the fixed income space yield is coming down. So definitely, if I have 1 million naira today, I will go to I will invest in the equity market. And if you ask me which specific stock I will invest in, I'll tell you I invest in Access Bank.
You have already linked the expo. Many Nigerians will now be looking at that point. But let me ask you one question, Murktar. The Fugas, First Bank, UBA, GT, and Access Bank and Zenith Bank. What is really happening? A lot of analysts have pointed to the fact that the banking sector is really dominating the Nigerian stock market. But take us through. Let us understand what is really happening.
Yeah, well, you should also not forget that we are in the recapitalization scheme of the Nigerian banks. And so the FUGA are leading in that recapitalization. And again, once the bank recapitalize, according to history, we know that normally they tend to make more profit because, again, this recapitalization drive at this moment is even a different type of recapitalization, whereby we are not looking at recapitalize for true shareholders fund. We are looking at fresh capital being injected into the market. So you see a lot of expansion, and the banks are no more just banks. They are now holding companies. So definitely with that, you expect that there will be a lot of expansion in the areas of the bank. So I think that's what a lot of Nigerians are looking at when you look at the banks where they are now, especially the FUGA banks. In terms of value, they also have created values. Again, when you look at those FUGA banks, you look at Zenith Bank, you look at GTCO, you look at Access Bank, you look at UB, and you look at First Bank. If you look at all these banks as it stands today, Zenith Bank have recapitalized, Access Bank have recapitalized, GT also have recapitalized. Don't forget that listing in London Stock Exchange. And I don't think it will be a problem for UBA and First Bank to recapitalize.
Interesting. But I see one company chasing all these banks, even with all their trillions. Dangote Cement is chasing them here and there. What do you make of that? Because a lot of people will wonder that only Dangote Cement chasing all these Fugas all around. But let's have your take on that.
Lekon, you should know what Dangote Cement is all about. It's Dangote Cement breach, the market breach. Dangote Cement sneeze, the market will definitely sneeze. And what we saw in terms of the All Share Index last week, gaining about 2 point something, was largely driven by Dangote. Now, excuse me. Then you look at Dangote again, you look at what the Dangote Cement is all about. It's not just in Nigeria. Dangote Cement is in Senegal, Dangote Cement is in Cameroon. So we are seeing an expansion of a Dangote cement all over Africa, and also planning to have a plan in South Africa and Nigeria. When you put all this together, when you're investing in Dangote cement, you're investing in like you're investing in a foreign company, a company that have branches in the foreign land. And you know that's what takes the FUGA banks different from the tier 2 banks because of their foreign branches that they have. So that same thing applies to Dangote at the moment. When you look at, that's why you can say Dangote can compete favorably with the FUGA bank, because what they have, he has spread all over Africa, and is even thinking to enter Europe through Algeria. And also that is what the FUGA banks also have. So anyone that is looking at it, they should also know that what the FUGA bank have, Dangote had in terms of spread.
Exactly. Now, talking about the oil and gas sector, we saw Saplat Petroleum Company, coming up earlier in the week last week, but all of a sudden, by the end of the week, I saw that they have a little bit not far away from what they started, but they are not far from what the Fugas and the Dangote is doing. But what do you make of the oil and gas sector, particularly with the re-entry and coming up stronger last week of Saplat Petroleum Company?
Can I come again? I didn't get that question.
What I'm trying to say is that on the oil and gas sector, Saplat Petroleum Company came up stronger by the middle of the week, but by the end of the week, they were nowhere to be found. Although, not that they have lost in that regard, but the oil and gas sector is not pushing as much as the consumer good. Go ahead. Let's have your take.
Well, Lekon, why the oil and gas sector is not pushing like the consumer goods? You ought to know that the consumer good is coming from recovery. We saw effects at the point that they were doing a lot of losses due to the revaluation of the floating of the naira. So what we are seeing now, those losses are no more there, and we are seeing a recovery from the consumer goods, and so we are seeing the kind of profit we are seeing in the consumer goods. For the oil and gas sector, we have seen oil price tumble down from cannot even meet our budget benchmark of $70, and so that also is affecting most of the oil and gas companies. And when you look at Seplat, and you look at Owando, and you look at Mobi, and you also look at Aradel, you tend to think that Seplat is very, very expensive in terms of what it brings to the table, and then by the dividend that he pays. So you do what we call comparable analysis, and that's why a lot of investors are moving towards Aradel, looking that the price is still low, and it's partially doing almost the same thing that Seplat is doing.
Interesting. But let's take a look at some policy from SEC. Security and Exchange Commission last week draw a warning to all Nigerians that there's a particular scammer company, that Afriquitum X, and we should all stay away from investing on them. What do you make of that statement, that warning statement from SEC last week?
Well, for the first time, I think SEC is doing the right thing, enlightening Nigerians, not coming after the damage has been done. So I totally agree with what SEC said. They are the regulators of the market, and so what every investor should know, that any company that is not registered on SEC website is not a company that any investor should be investing in. So I kudos to SEC for coming out with that and warning to a lot of Nigerians, because that is why they are there.
Interesting. But another policy that we also need to review before I let you go is this: the capital gain tax that is coming up by next year under the new tax law. Although I've not heard you speak on it, but what is your view about this new law coming?
I didn't get that question.
What I'm asking is about the capital gain tax that is coming up next year, based on the new tax law that will be implementing from 1st January 2026. A lot of financial analysts are already putting out statements in regards to the 30%, 25% that will be taken out, particularly on equity when you buy or when you sell your shares and the rest of them. But what do you make of this capital gain tax?
Lekon, let's be clear about the capital gain tax. I think the chairman of the tax reform committee has come out to clarify some things.
Exactly.
Number one, you can only do that if you have done a transaction in a year up to 150 million.
Exactly.
That's when you will now have to pay that capital gain tax. So we shouldn't forget that. For me, I think the capital gain tax should be reviewed by the government. They should look at it, especially if you look at what we have been able to achieve in terms of attracting foreign portfolio investors into the market, which have in turn helped in stabilizing the naira. So paying a capital gain tax of 30% may not encourage foreign investors to come into our market. And I think that capital gains tax seems to be the highest in Africa. We also need to make our own environment more competitive also. So just like the CPN was talking about making the naira competitive, it is time for them to make our market very competitive, and they cannot do that by imposing a 30% capital gain tax. For me, it's high. If moving from almost 10% to 30% is very high. I think they should look at it. It's a good bill, like I've always said. But again, when it comes to investment, you also have to look at both ways, because again, they might say that will enhance liquidity, that will help investors staying long in the market. But again, that will only help retail investors. And retail investors are not really the mover of the market.
Exactly.
It's high net investors, institutional investors, and especially foreign investors. So it's something I think they should look into again. I'm not saying that capital gain tax should not work, but I think it's something that they should review. Maybe come it a little bit lower and then put up a time frame, maybe for the next 3, 4, 5 years before you get to 30%. Starting with 30% for me is very, very high, especially when we look at the fragile economic environment that we are operating at the moment.
Exactly. Very subtle, submission in that regard. But let's also take a look at this before I let you go. World Bank IMF spring meeting is happening right now in Washington. There was a part 1 of it in April this year, 2025. Now we are having the part 2 coming up. Any expectation on your side in terms of what they will be talking about this time around? The last time they had, it's about rebalancing your fiscal policy. Your spending should be able to meet up with your efficiency in the area of your revenue. But what do you expect in this coming meeting of the IMF World Bank Group spring meeting in Washington right now?
Leko, you want my candid opinion about this? I always think the World Bank, whatever you call it, World Bank, IMF meetings in all over, I think is a jamboree. It's just a jamboree for me. So I rather don't talk about it, because I have not seen any meaningful development those meetings have come out for, especially for developing economy. For me, it's just a normal jamboree. And so everybody goes there, say what you have to say, then go back, and the status quo remains.
Do you know why I asked you that question? Our big guys are there. The CBN governor is there. Minister of Finance is there. Minister of Trade is there. SEC people are there. Players are there. So when you say jamboree, it doesn't mean let me not go that level. But what I'm trying to say is that at least something will definitely come up.
That's what makes it a jamboree for me. Everybody is there, and at the end of the day, we come back and we the status quo remains. So it's a jamboree as far as I'm concerned.
All right, Murktar, I really want to thank you for coming on the show today. It's a pleasure to always have you with your very interesting and instructive submission on most of the economic issue, particularly on Nigerian stock market and other development. Thank you so much for coming on the show, sir.
Thank you for having me.
And let me quickly hint you. There's I'll send him a message on that. There's a new development on Nigerian fixed income. The Central Bank of Nigeria said they want to take over the fixed income platform. Guess what? A lot of analysts, economists are saying, CBN, you have already had enough. Don't go and bite what you cannot chew. Let's leave it like that. That will be part of one of the discussion that will definitely bring Murktar to come and help us to explain why CBN want to take that aspect. Having discussed issue around job creation with Mr. Lawrence Taylor over there in Texas, US, and also all stock index positive rally with Murktar Mohammed. We have come to the end of today's edition of Market Report. My name is Adefolayan Olamilekun. I'll be leaving you with this word of encouragement. Always find something interesting to put your money in. And that's why the poser is out. If you have a 1 million naira today, where will you pull that money to? For Murktar, he said he will put his money in the equity market. For others, I don't know where you put your money to. But I'm asking, if you have 1 million naira today, Where do you put that 1 million naira? Because every day, 1 naira is appreciating against any other foreign currency. We'll leave you with that. Till we come your way with another edition of Market Report. I sign out from here. Bye.